The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, REL-MAR McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. To find out about the broadcast schedule for the X Zone Broadcast Network, go to www.xzbn.net, and for the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV, www.simultv.com. Now, what we are doing because of this worldwide pandemic that is wreaking havoc with people around the world is that we have made special arrangements with Simul TV, who is the distribution arm of the X Zone Broadcast Network, to let viewers around the world watch the X Zone TV channel at no charge whatsoever. You can listen to the best of music from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and 80s. Commercial free, no charge. You can read past editions of the X Chronicles newspaper as well as the current editions of the X Chronicles newspaper with our compliments. All this to try and help and be part of a solution that has gripped the world. To get all of this, you just have to go to one website, www.xzbnprime.com. That's xzbnprime.com. When you go to the XZBN website, you're going to see PSO on the schedule, and that stands for Paranormal Stakeout. Joining me this hour is my good friend Larry Lawson, who is the host of Paranormal Stakeout. And Larry is in Florida on the coast. I've had the pleasure of visiting that beautiful part, St. Sebastian, Vero Beach part of Florida. And Larry, it's always great having you here on the X Zone, my friend.
Well, it is a pleasure to be with you, my friend. It's been a while.
It has been. Way too long. Larry, you and I were chatting briefly before we went to air about the coronavirus. And as a police officer, how has the coronavirus affected the part of Florida where you are?
Well, it's actually it's just now starting to peak in our area, I think. It's been a little bit tougher down in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. Orlando's getting hit pretty hard. We're what we call the Treasure Coast, and we're about 50 miles north of West Palm and about 50 miles south of Cape Canaveral on the East Coast. We certainly haven't been shielded from it, but it's not hit us as quickly as some of the larger metropolitan areas. But it's starting to invade this area, and it's taxing our system tremendously. And we're expecting this week and next week to probably be some of the roughest times for us.
Now, I on the news, I saw pictures of the law enforcement agencies actually turning people away who were coming down into the Florida area who had no business being down there.
Yeah, the governor set up checkpoints on I-10 coming out of Louisiana where they had a pretty big hot area, I think in the New Orleans area, and certainly the I-95 corridor, which has always been famous for travelers from the Northeast coming down here. And they've literally set up checkpoints out there to check and see why people are coming into the state and what their business is. It's an attempt to, cut off the virus before it spreads. And sometimes folks, I guess, don't get it, or maybe they get nervous. They get worried about friends and family, which I can understand. But when there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of spread, as we now know.
How has the coronavirus affected policing?
Well, it's obviously put a stressor on everyone. Now, and this is just my opinion, the firefighter paramedics are the ones that have it a lot tougher because they've actually have to respond to calls of people being sick. Obviously, we will respond with them when we can, but a lot of times they're the ones that have to go through it themselves. Now, as far as us, obviously handling calls for service and working extra hours, it's tough. And as you know, I don't do it full time anymore.
Yeah.
But the guys that are out there, they're having it's stressing their families. They come home, they really can't be with their families because they don't know who they've come in contact with. So it's been difficult.
Now, as the head honcho of the Paranormal FBI group and the Indian River Hauntings group, how has the coronavirus affected the paranormal community down there? It's
pretty well shut it down because, frankly, you have to be responsible in your actions. Indian River Hauntings, of course, we do tours of historical nature as well as paranormal, and that is shut down completely because, frankly, it's just a responsible thing to do. We don't do our own. The Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, our investigative arm, have not been doing anything because once again we're all pretty well quarantined, and the state of Florida is in shutdown mode right now. Only essential people are out there, so we're not doing a whole lot right now.
Prior to the shutdown, I would imagine you were as busy as usual.
Yeah, it's as you know, I had to take some time off in January and February, but it was very busy. In fact, right up to the day early in March, and they began to shut things down. I had people calling for tours, and we had several investigations planned. It was very, very busy. We'd done a benefit. We worked very closely with the Indian River Historical Society down here, and we did a benefit for them to help raise money for to keep their historical buildings going. And it was at the end of February we did that, and just within a week or so after that, we shut down completely.
Let me ask you this, Larry. Did you notice an increase in paranormal activity as we got closer to the coronavirus epidemic?
In all fairness, no, not necessarily. We had some interesting things occur, but we did not see anything that caught our eye as being unusual. And I've been asked this question before by folks wondering if there was some indication of this coming, but not us, but other folks have that I've been told.
Yeah, I often wondered that, and I knew you were coming on the show tonight, so I thought I'd save that question for you. When it comes to the paranormal and the investigations, have you ever noticed anything that you could correlate a spike of activity with?
Well, that it's interesting you bring that up because one of the tenets of our organization, we're out to collect evidence.
Right.
As you know, being a law enforcement officer of 40 years now, I look at this as an investigation as if I was conducting a criminal investigation. So evidence is paramount. So collecting the evidence, and I'm kind of lost track of your question there. I'm sorry, but collecting the evidence is something that we take very, very seriously. And if you can restate your question for me, I apologize.
Sorry, what I was asking is, have you been able in the past to correlate any spike in paranormal activity with any event that is going on?
Well, and that's what we're doing now. That's where I was going with it. I apologize. A lot of our equipment is used to test things like atmospheric anomalies, as well as maybe solar anomalies and things like that. And we're trying right now to collect evidence to see if it does correlate with a spike of activity. We were on the road to getting a lot of that done when we pretty well got shut down. But we have found that there are certain things that do spark events, but not necessarily events such as this. It's more like atmospheric conditions, that type of thing. I don't know if that answers your question the way I want. We have never found a spike in activity before a major event occurred, if that's
Really?
the kind of question you're asking.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was asking, my friend. All right, Larry, stand by. You and I have to take our first break. And Exonation, if
Okay.
you'd like more information about my good friend Larry Lawson, here are two websites, paranormalfbi.com. That's the paranormalfbi.com and indianriverhauntings.com. That's indianriverhauntings.com. And Larry and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. Now, don't forget, if you'd like to listen to the best of music in happy times, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, as well as watch the X Zone TV channel, as well as read all the past editions of the X Chronicles newspaper, just go to one place, www.xzbn.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away. Welcome back to the X Zone. For all our Ontario listeners, you'll all be happy to know that Premier Doug Ford has proclaimed that the Easter Bunny is part of the essential services, so Easter will not be canceled this weekend. But stay at home. No family visits. You've got to keep this up, gang. We're seeing that it is working. Self-isolation works. Social distancing works. So please think about the other person. Think about your family, but also think about those outside that if you decide to go outside, they may infect you or you may infect them, and we've got enough on our plates. So stay safe, stay well, and for goodness sake, stay at home. Larry Lawson's our guest, paranormalfbi.com and indianriverhauntings.com. Larry, we talked about the collection of evidence in the last segment. Do all groups collect evidence, and is that evidence shared with all other paranormal groups and investigation units?
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry, I had a little feedback there. As you know, Rob, this is a huge issue for me, and the answer to your question is, generally speaking, no. There are tons of groups out there. I think you and I talked one time. There was something like 5,000 groups in the Los Angeles area alone. And there's all kinds of people out there doing this, and many of them are what I refer to as the paranormal thrill seekers. And I'm certainly not disparaging that, but they want to go out on the weekend, have fun, hear the bump in the night, maybe get an EVP and be thrilled and go back to work and forget about it the next week. But what do they do with this evidence? What do they do? You'd mentioned before about do we find any correlation between a spike in activity and major events? The problem is nobody's collecting the evidence and analyzing it. And I say nobody. That's probably not fair. I'm sure there's some folks out there that do, but there is no sharing that's going on. There's no sharing of information. There's no sharing of evidence, and sometimes it's not intentional. There are some groups out there that like to share their evidence, but there's no central repository for me down here in Vero Beach, Florida, to find out what somebody's doing up in Tacoma, Washington.
Why?
necessarily.
But Larry, if you're all looking for the same solution, why not share the information? You know as well as I do, as being two cops, that the information that we have is shared on two computers. In the United States, I believe it's NCIC, and up here in Canada, it's CPIC.
Yeah.
We share the information.
Well, here's part of the problem. One is a general feeling of, look, we're never going to prove this. People are either going to believe it or not believe it. We know what's going on, so this will never happen. That's one way of thinking, one line of thought that's out there. I don't agree with it. I'm kind of a pain in the butt about that. I believe we can find the answer if we all pull together. But there's such a belief out there that it's never going to get any better. So let's just collect what we have and go forward. The other part of those thrill seekers that I'm talking about, and these are folks that are just wanting to have a thrill. And when I say that, I almost make it sound bad. But, there are folks that just like to have thrills. Why do people jump out of perfectly good airplanes, for example? Why do people jump off of a cliff with a rubber band around their ankle? It's for a thrill. There are always going to be people like that, and that's part of life. But unfortunately, I'm finding that is a huge majority of the folks that are out there, one of falling into those two fields. Now, I've talked to folks and talked to groups that, hey, Larry, you're right. We need to collect this evidence. We need to start analyzing it and maybe correlate a major event with a spike of activity. But we're just not there yet. We're just not there yet. And it's a shame because, hey, how often can you go out and hear that bump in the night or get the EVP and it'd be thrilling? After a while, it's the same thing. If you're not doing it for a purpose, why are you doing it? And that's where I'm coming from.
It would seem that with all the different groups out there some of them have been out there 10, 15, 20 years doing investigations and such, that there would be a repository where other organizations and groups could add to the data as well as use the data that's already been collected. It would make it so much easier.
It would, but what you have to do up front, Rob, is you have to have some level of standards, some level of structure. In other words, you've got to have people doing things in a certain way. And I take a lot of heat for this, that, we just can't put ourselves into a box and do something the same way every time. It doesn't work like that. Well, I say hooey. There are ways to create structure so that a guy doing an EVP session down here in Florida is essentially doing it the same way they're doing it in Washington. Heck, as police officers, if we were to conduct a homicide investigation down here in Vero, your detectives up in Niagara Falls, Canada, are going to essentially do it the same way.
Exactly.
A few changes here and there. There'll be changes in the laws, maybe in some techniques, but generally the standards and the structure is going to be the same. That's what we have to do, and that would assist in creating that repository. But there's another problem too, Rob, and that's egos. Oh, you're not going to tell me how to do it any other way. I know I'm doing it the right way. I'm not going to share my evidence. We've got to get away from that. And I do see people wanting to head in that direction, but we still haven't gotten a momentum to go forward. And let's face it, too, right now especially, people have other things on their minds.
Big time.
Yeah. So, but that's the direction I see.
When you're doing your Indian River Hauntings tours, where is the most haunted place that you take the people who go on these tours with you?
Well, and before I answer that, I'll tell you this: that the tours that we go on are not here to scare you tours. They're also historical tours.
Right.
To be in this, to do this, you must love and appreciate history. So these tours are historical facts about the area, as well as the stuff that we and the investigative team, the FBPI, have investigated. So to answer your question as to what's the scariest spot, for the longest time and I still have to say Fellsmere, the town of Fellsmere, which you visited.
Yes,
you joined us out a couple times.
Great place.
We have had some very amazing things happen in that town. I will tell you this: in the month and a half leading up to this event, it was dead quiet. if you excuse the pun there, nothing was going on. Is that an indicator of something? I couldn't tell you for sure. I don't know, but it was very, very quiet.
Really?
Whereas in a couple of other spots, a little more activity started showing up. We had a place in Sebastian that asked us to come in. It's a microbrewery, and the building itself, frankly, used to be a post office. Up until they came in there, it was a post office and it was a hardware store. I personally heard myself a piano playing in there when we were doing our investigation, and there's never been a piano in there. And we got it on a recorder too. So there's other spots that picked up at Fellsmere, which is our scariest spot, to answer your question. The place where most folks have experienced something has been very quiet since the beginning of the year.
Calm before the storm?
Well, all we can do is suppose on that one. I don't know. All I can tell you is it was quieter than we've ever seen it. And because we try to show people the right way to do this and the responsible way to do this. There's no, we don't make things happen. So it was legitimately quiet on all fronts.
Do you find graveyards are more active than other places that you've taken your tours to?
I don't go take tours to graveyards, and part of it is respect. Mm-hmm. For example, the Fellsmere graveyard, which is old, and we've had some amazing things happen there. I will only take folks there that are legitimately trying to collect data, and that's mostly for respect. I suppose if we were in a place like St. Augustine, it would be a little bit different because the cemeteries are more in the middle of the town. The times I've been in cemeteries, I've had some very, very unique things happen. I can't tell you that I've had more experiences there than I've had, say, in the old school in Fellsmere. But there certainly has been some instances where I've had things dashing in front of me, lights that just appeared out of nowhere. And I've talked to many people that's the only place they'll go is a graveyard. So.
Really?
Me personally, I don't find it to be that much more active than the other places.
Food for thought as we go into this half-hour break with the news. Larry Lawson's my very special guest. He's the host of Paranormal Stakeout. It's on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. To find out when and where you can listen to Larry, visit www.xzbn.net. The X-Zone is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we come to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and on Simul TV. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Larry Lawson is my guest this hour, Exonation, www.paranormalfbi.com or indianriverhauntings.com. Larry, what has been the most pivotal part of the years that you've been doing paranormal investigations that to you proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that ghosts are real?
Well, that's an interesting question.
I try.
Anybody that says they absolutely know the answers are either liars or fools or a little bit of both. I personally have had, the first time I ever saw a full-bodied apparition was I just gotten my start in law enforcement as I started in the Dade County Jail as a corrections officer. My first 9 months in law enforcement was there. And one night I saw a figure walking down on the catwalk between two of the cell blocks. And there was no doubt what I saw. Nothing fuzzy or wispy about it. It was a figure, but that figure ended up not being there. What I'm getting at is many of us in the field, and some that aren't in the field, have experienced things that they know damn well have happened. The problem is proving it and what exactly that it is. Now, that event I'm talking about was probably I never had anything happen to me as a child. I never experienced anything as a kid. Mm-hmm. That event there happened as a young adult and sticks with me. And since then, I've had a number of other things that have happened. But you know what? We don't know what it is, and that's the mission of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigations, is to find out what it is. Now, do I believe there's something else out there? Yeah, and I believe it based upon events like I just shared with you in the jail. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you or your listeners or my guests on tours that I know what a ghost is or I know what the phenomenon is. The only way we're going to find out is by serious investigation using the scientific method to try and come up with the answers. I know that's probably not the answer you expected to hear, but the only thing I could tell you, Rob, is there's something out there, and there is some belief that it may actually be us. I don't know if you're familiar with it happened in Toronto in the 70s. It was called the Philip experiment. Are you familiar with that?
I am, but tell our listeners about it.
Well, that was a really interesting, and the name of the organization's escaping me. I want to say it was the Toronto Association of, I can't remember the exact name of it, but the name of the experiment was the Philip experiment. Mm-hmm. And what this group did was they wanted to find out exactly how much our minds created this phenomenon. They created a guy named Philip. They gave him a full dossier. I think they set his timing back in the 1600s, something like that, in the midst of some very historically significant events. And they gave him a whole dossier, a family, dog, whatever. Then after they created this dossier, they began doing what EVP sessions or seances, if you will. And you know what? They started getting answers that identified themselves as Philip. They videotaped a lot of it. They recorded a lot of it. And there's certainly going to be folks out there that are going to question whether or not they did it that was legitimate or not. But the bottom line is they were getting Philip to respond to them. They even had table levitation occur because of it. So there was no Philip. So what was it? Was it the other side playing games with them? Or was it the strength of their own minds, their own psyche that was creating such a believable person that their own energy caused it to act out? Does that make sense?
It does, and the Philip experiment was done in 1972, Exonation.
Yeah.
And it was conducted by a Toronto Parapsychological Research Society led by mathematical geneticist Dr. A.R. George Owen, and overseen by psychologist Dr. Joel Witten. So it was taken kind of on a serious level, but there was a lot of criticism about the entire event as well, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of people that felt that they did not have the proper scientific safeguards in place and whatnot. But you know, when you think about it, Rob, they're actually showing that, well, Philip never existed, so he couldn't be a spirit from the other side.
Right.
So let's just say they didn't use all of the proper methods, and I'm finding many of the groups, there's one famous experiment in England, and I'm not even going to go into the name or anything, that once you read about it, they didn't follow proper procedures at all. But if this is the case, then are there really ghosts? Are there really spirits on the other side? Or was it the actual energy from their own minds? I mean, we do not know the entire capacity or abilities of our own brain.
Well, if that can be the case for a ghost, do you think can also be applied to other aspects of the paranormal? For example, Bigfoot sightings, lake monsters, UFOs, and I'm not talking about the ones that Andrea Perron sees. I can't believe I said that.
I'm really kind of shocked you did too, but anyway.
It's a good thing I didn't say anything about the flying saucers that she sees that are the size of football fields, right?
Yeah, well, no, you didn't mention that at
Okay.
all. Anyway, it can be applied anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I am not going to sit here and tell you that it was a figment of their own imagination. I wasn't there, so I am not going to sit here and say they faked anything. I don't know.
Right.
But it does bring into the light that there is a possibility that we have the ability with the power of our own brains to create things. So that is the mission of the FBPI. To answer your question, Rob, yes, I do believe there's something out there. What it is, I don't know. And anybody that says they know for sure,
right,
I question them.
So do I. How long does it usually take your group to do an investigation, let's say on a home?
Well, I don't like, for lots of reasons, I don't normally do homes. We don't do homes unless it's a special reason, and there's a lot of liability reasons for that one. I don't like doing homes because you're also dealing with other people's mental health or illness issues. But we will if it's a serious situation. But let's take a building. We do a lot of buildings that people are renovating to start a business in, for example. We'll go in. We'll do a talk to the owners. We'll do a survey. I have actually two members of my team. One is a retired detective lieutenant with Monroe County from the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, and she does all my backgrounds. And she goes through all of the historical documents, property appraiser, tax collector, the whole bit to find out everything about the property as far back as we can go. We then conduct an interview with the owners or the people that are principal in the facility, the venue, and then we'll conduct our investigation, and that can go anywhere from 2 hours to 5 and 6 hours, and we prefer to go back several times, simply because anybody that thinks they can get all the data they need in one 4-hour session are fooling themselves. So we'll try and go back several times to venues to continue gathering data. We do not embark on things such as we'll clear your house of your spirit. To me, that's an ethical issue.
You're investigators. You're investigators.
Correct, and that's what we try to do. Now, we will try to find answers. For example, we will get a name. We may get a name on a piece of our equipment, and then we will start researching the name to find out if there's any historical connection with what we heard or received with the property. So it's not a cookie cutter thing, Rob. We try to go in 3-4 times. The hours vary. Sometimes the hours will vary because of the owner of the property. We can only be in there a certain amount of time, if that makes sense. So we'll go back 3-4 times.
The owner being there while you're doing your investigation, is that an asset or is that a hindrance?
That is a big source of argument in the field.
Really?
Some people say absolutely not. You don't need anybody. You don't want them there. My feeling is why not? They're experiencing it now. We go through a whole session with them, informing them of how we need them to conduct themselves. But I have nothing to hide. I want them to see it. And frankly, sometimes the owner or the principal person that's theirs may be the reason that the events are happening. So I personally find it to be an advantage. We have never had an issue with having an owner or the owner's representative with us. I think for transparency, I think it's very, very important that they see what we're doing.
Right.
And frankly, they see how we operate, and they walk away very pleased. And I constantly hear, "You've got really a professional outfit here," because we have a routine that we do and that we go through so that everything is pretty much the same. So I don't find it a hindrance at all.
All right, my friend, please stand by. You and I have to take our final break for this hour, Larry. Always great talking to you. And thank you for your service, my friend.
Thank you, and same to you, my friend.
Exonation, if you'd like to have more information about Larry and the great work that he and his groups do, paranormalfbi.com and indianriverhauntings.com. And we'll both be back on the other side of this commercial break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Larry Lawson is my guest this hour, Exonation. Here's a couple of websites, paranormalfbi.com and indianriverhauntings.com. And you can listen to Larry on the Paranormal Stakeout radio show on the X Zone Broadcast Network. And all you need to do to find out when the show will be aired, go to www.xzbn.net. Larry, this hour is going way too fast, my friend. First of all, thank you so much for coming on the show, and my very best to your beautiful family from their relatives up here in the northern part of the other side of the border of Buffalo. What the hell?
Thanks, buddy.
How important are ethics, in your opinion, in the paranormal investigation and research organizations?
Well, they're absolutely vital, and part of the reason you see it is because of all the charlatans that have historically been attached to the field.
Mm-hmm.
Groups that either by design show a lack of ethics or a lack of maturity or training in the field, it doesn't matter. It continues to create a tremendous amount of harm.
Mm-hmm.
I know of one venue in particular that I was going to take a group of people to, and we couldn't. And the reason we couldn't, because there was another group that was there that had gone in there and acted like they owned the place,
Mm-hmm.
had treated the staff and the property with such disrespect. The venue decided nobody can ever come in there and do any kind of work like that again.
Oh, gosh.
Now, that type of ethic is how you treat people and how we are viewed and how folks take what we're doing seriously or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that part of the ethics is very important. Conducting yourself in such a way that your mom would be proud of you. That's kind of a benchmark I have. Always do something that your mom will be proud of, because your mom sees everything, right? There's another part of the ethics too, and that has to do with the folks that you're dealing with and their state of mind,
Mm-hmm.
and what they're hoping to find. I've seen groups out there that have made claims. We'll come in and clear your house and solve your problem, or we'll come in and we'll drive away this bad spirit that's there. I've seen some groups that they're just naive. They think they can do it and they don't. And I've seen some other ones that just do it to say they can do it.
Wow.
To build their own nest. I'm a huge believer in policing ourselves. So when a legitimate group sees that happens, they have to call them out. But think about this for a second. You've got an individual. You mentioned homes before.
Yes.
You've got an individual that wants to come that has a problem in their house. Now,
Mm-hmm.
This individual may have mental health issues.
Yeah.
And this group lacks the ethics to be honest about what they can and can't do, and makes a promise to this individual who's already suffering from other issues that may be the cause of what they're experiencing. But they go in there, they do their thing, and they leave saying, we identified it, we've solved the problem. Oh, thank you very much. And a week later, the problems start again. It could be because they didn't solve the problem, or it could be because the client has other issues. But they didn't care about that. They only cared about feathering their nest and putting one more feather in their cap, so to speak. And they've turned out harming somebody even further, because now the problem has come back. And what have you done? You told me the problem was solved. It's not. And now they can't find the person, the group, or the group doesn't call them back. Mm-hmm. Those are ethical dilemmas that happen in this field, and they've got to stop.
So how do you police it, and how do you stop it?
Well, right now, the only way to do that, my friend, is to, when a legitimate group sees that, okay, they don't want to maybe badmouth folks, but they need to at least call them out and maybe let other folks in the field know, hey, they're not holding up to the standards that we want to. There's a lot of decent groups out there. I want to make sure that's really clear to your listeners. There's a lot of terrific organizations out there that are truly trying their best. And when those groups find somebody that's making promises they can't keep for whatever reason, they need to call them out. Now, in a bigger picture, wouldn't it be great if we had, I know you've got it in Canada, we certainly have it here in Florida, for policing. Man, when you've got a set of standards, and you better follow them, or else.
Yeah.
Now I get a lot of heat from that. A lot of folks in groups say, "Oh, that you can't do that." I guess it's the cop in me, but it's the only way we can police ourselves, by having folks watching out for others on the inside.
But those who are against it, Larry, doesn't this show that they're really not serious about what they're doing, and they might be doing it for the wrong reasons?
Well, yes and no, and I had that same belief up front, and I think that it certainly puts a suspicious eye on it for me when somebody says, "No, man, you're not going to tell me how to do it. No, you're not going to come look over my shoulder either." It does make me suspicious, but there are just some people in this field. They've been doing it for so long, and they've had nobody else to say, "Hey, you can't do that," or "You shouldn't do that," or "Is there a better way to do it?" They're just not going to listen. Now, I wish they would. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they are definitely doing something improper or unethical, but without some sort of standards and self-policing, we're going to continue to have problems like that.
You're talking about somebody who says that they've been doing this for so long, and they basically don't want to change. But the fact that they've been doing paranormal investigations for so long, and still the anomaly has yet to be defined or identified, wouldn't that show that whatever he's doing, he may be doing it wrong?
Oh yeah, but sometimes they start believing their own press. If you get my point.
I sure do.
And hey, I've even seen it in police work. I'm sure you saw it up there, especially when things transitioned from the 60s to the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. You saw a lot of the old timers. Hey, I've been doing it this way for 20 years, young buck. You're not going to change my mind. I'm not saying that's right, but it's what happens. And finally, obviously, in our business, things have changed. We're not quite there yet in the paranormal field, because we don't have a central body. It's everybody doing their own thing, and that's scary sometimes, my friend. It's scary.
If you would have the opportunity of being the man in charge of all these groups, what are the first 3 things that you would do?
Structure, training on the structure. What I mean by structure is coming up with a plan. And folks misunderstand this. They hear me say structure. Well, I'm doing it my own way. Structure's can be very loose, much like I described a homicide investigation down here and one up in Niagara Falls, Canada. There's going to be some differences on techniques. There's going to be some differences on some rules, but essentially it's going to be done the same way, the major structure. And that's what we need to do. Then we need to train folks and get everybody on board with it to start working that way. And that's if that ever happens, I don't know, but I'm pretty stubborn. I believe it will happen someday. So those are the first two things. And then the other one is ethics training, setting up standards and ethics, and how we conduct business. So those would be the three things: standards, training, and ethics.
Tell us about the YouTube channel that you do.
Oh, well, that's kind of just a fun thing. We're on YouTube. It's all called On the Air with Indian River Hauntings, and it's a buddy of mine in England who I've met and done some work with. I actually had him on the Paranormal Stakeout show a year or two ago, and he has some psychic abilities. And when I was over in England, we did some work together last summer before all this craziness happened, and we just basically talk about these sort of topics. It's we have a general direction that we're going to go. People can call in. People type in questions and I'll answer their questions. And it's supposed to be a forum for folks that are interested in the field to talk about their experiences, what their thoughts are. I'm going to tell you right up front, I am not an expert in the field. There's no experts in the field. And Chris Huff, who's the gentleman over in Durham, England, it's kind of interesting because he's in England, I'm in Florida, and my son Ryan is in Orlando, and he kind of engineers it for us. We just talk about what's on our mind and what the folks that are listening, what's on their mind, and it's more of an open forum.
Excellent. You're making a difference, my friend.
I'd like to think so, and I'm not going to stop. I may be stubborn, but I'm not going to stop until we get things turned.
Larry, as always, the time goes by so fast. Let our listeners know your websites one more time, my friend.
Sure. The Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation is www.paranormalfbi.com. And Indian River Hauntings, which is our public arm, our outreach arm, if you will be at www.indianriverhauntings.com.
Larry, from our home to yours, take care of yourself. Stay well and stay home, my friend. Remember social distancing. Yeah, being a police officer.
Social distancing, absolutely. Exactly. It's helping us here.
Larry, take care of yourself, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us tonight.
And thank you for inviting me. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Exo Nation, Larry Lawson was our guest this hour. Two websites, paranormalfbi.com and indianriverhauntings.com. I'll be back on the other side of the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as The X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, will continue from our broadcast center and studios right here in Niagara, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.